Lozano and Pamela Luther, and the moderator is John Sheridan. Let's get going.
I'd like to thank the candidates for showing up today and welcoming you to Garland. For this forum, for this part, we're going to run it slightly differently since we have two candidates that didn't show up. We'll have a 2-minute opening statement instead of a 1 minute, and a 2-minute closing statement instead of a 1 minute. And a 3-minute response period for each of the 3 questions instead of a 1 minute response. We'll start with the 2 yes/no questions. Simply answer yes or no. If you'd like to expound upon that response, you can do so in either your opening or your closing statement. But please just limit your response to this question as either a yes or a no. So the first question is, since 2006, have you ever voted in a Republican primary? Pamela?
Yes.
Okay. Johnny?
Yes.
Okay. So the second question is, has either of you ever contributed to a Republican candidate financially?
I don't. It's over since 2006.
Yes. since 2006.
No.
Johnny?
No.
Okay. With that, we'll have open statements begin now. We'll start with Pamela.
My name is Pamela Luther. I'm running for judge of Dallas County Court of Criminal Appeals number 2. I went to SMU Law School. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I'm the mother of 7 children. That they're all mine. And I'm not Catholic. And I'm not crazy. Those are usually the follow-up questions to that statement. Then I went to SMU Law School as an older student, as a single mother. I kind of have an upside-down career at the District Attorney's Office. I started in death penalty there, and then went full-time for the Criminal Trial Division for misdemeanor crimes in the misdemeanor court, which I love misdemeanor court. I've also worked as a public defender for Dallas County, and then private practice in criminal defense. One of the reasons I love misdemeanor court, number one, I regret the work I did in death penalty, and I don't ever want to go back to it. And so that's why when it came time to move from misdemeanor to felony, I moved over to the public defender's office and stayed there for the same reasons. But misdemeanor court is so valuable because most of the people there have never been in trouble before. It's a good chance they haven't been in trouble before. And so sometimes the experience itself is a deterrent and they won't be back. But if they have a problem such as an addiction, that's where the red flag is shown. And we have diversion courts and we can really make a difference. So I enjoy misdemeanor court because I really do feel like I can make a difference in those people's lives. It's a good chance to catch any problems that could prevent them from coming back into the criminal justice system.
Thank you very much. John?
Yes, my name is Johnny Lanzillo. I'm a candidate for County Court of Criminal Appeals number 2 as well. I was born and raised in North Dallas. I still live in Richardson. I went to school at Texas Wesleyan School of Law, and while I was in law school, I took part in the Innocence Project, where I reviewed about 10 cases for DNA exonerations, and I also took part in the Family Law Clinic, where we represented clients who were indigent in family court. Out of law school, I was hired by a firm I'd interned with, where I took over their criminal caseload, where I managed a docket of about 100 to 120 cases at a time in counties across Texas. We had an office in Houston, and we also practiced in Dallas, Collin, Denton, Tarrant, Rockwall counties, and I also did some work in Travis County. I've tried misdemeanors all the way up to first-degree felonies. Currently, I'm the managing partner of my law firm, where I've got a partner and a staff of, I believe, 5 right now. So I also handle, on top of my current legal duties, I handle payroll, taxes, HR, office management, and our budget. And that's important because a judge also has to do the administrative side of the work, just like they have to do the legal side. When I was first trying cases, the very first case I tried out of for being licensed was a first-degree felony, so I was thrown into the fire. Since that time, I've tried a numerous amount of jury trials, bench trials, and family law trials. So I have a large amount of experience practicing law, as well as doing administrative and management work. and I believe I'd be a great candidate for this court. And I'll get to more on closing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, my first question is, on some of your websites or campaign materials, several of you, meaning each of the 4 candidates, 2 of which obviously around here, have identified issues such as addiction, substance abuse, mental health, cash bail that should be addressed in this race. In my mind, the common thread of these issues as they connect to the criminal justice system in almost all cases has to do with poverty. What can you do in your capacity as a judge to ensure equal justice for the poor and the disadvantaged?
We'll start with me.
Start with John.
Okay.
Sure. I've actually addressed this numerous times on what I want to do. It's basically my platform. The first thing I want to do is I want to push hard on bail reform. Dallas County is currently very strong in there. They're making strides. But what I want to push for is for 24-hour pretrial release for all nonviolent misdemeanors. That would mean no bail at all, so money isn't the reason why you get out of jail. All you have to do is show back up to court, and that's what pretrial release is. It's currently in place in Dallas County, but it takes several days before you get a chance to get there. If I'm elected, I would want my court to have a 24-hour pretrial release. The other thing I want to do is jail diversion for those who can't get out of jail. Right now in Dallas County, they've got a program. It's the Dallas County Memo Program. It's essentially an agreement between the district attorney's office and a defense attorney and a defendant, where if they pay some money, they complete some community service, take a class, and pass some drug tests over a 60-day period, their case is dismissed. It's available for first-time defendants who have no criminal history, and they don't face the long-term consequences of someone who has to take a conviction. If you're stuck in jail, you don't have that option. If you have an immigration hold or traffic warrants or maybe a tied-in felony, so this misdemeanor, you may generally be eligible had you been out of jail, but if you're in jail, it's not an option. And that could be, you could also not be able to make bond. And so what I want to do is make sure, I want to work with whoever is elected district attorney and whoever is elected sheriff to work with them to mimic the program on the outside for defendants on the inside so that they're not forced to take convictions that ruin their lives. They may be facing deportation. They may not be able to get jobs. They may be able to not be able to enroll in college. They may not be able to get apartments because they have to take convictions because they're in jail, where if they were able to make bond or they were out, their case would be dismissed. And so I want to create that equity between those in jail and out of jail. Thank you.
Any question? Yeah, that touches on why I love misdemeanor court, because you have so many opportunities to get people into a diversion court. Mental health and poverty, and that goes hand in hand. Most of our homeless people out on the street getting arrested for criminal trespass over and over are really mental health problems. Also, everybody talks about bail reform, and everybody understands why we need it. But I think one of the most important needs that we have that affects a specific minority, the Hispanic community gets hit 4 times harder than the others in every way. They are very often profiled. Their economics are often such that they need a court-appointed attorney. Then they have a language problem, and then a smaller pool of representation, and then they may face deportation for a conviction. So nobody faces all those things. But some of the problems that you use, the problems that need to be solved to help them will help also others that are indigent and have similar economic problems. One of the most important things to me is making sure that they have a translator. I don't know if y'all know how the jail works, but the jails come through a secret passage up to the courthouse for people who can't afford an attorney. And they're brought up to the courtroom, and for the very first time they meet their court-appointed attorney. Well, guess what? When the court-appointed attorney finds out they speak Spanish, that person goes back to jail while everybody else resolves their case. So they're going back to jail because they speak Spanish. So one of the most important things to me for people who can't afford an attorney, and especially the ones that don't speak English, is to make sure that we have always access to at least a Spanish translator. I mean, this is Texas. I mean, people come to me with other similar stories where they had somebody who spoke sign language and tried to read lips, and really just, gave them all the wrong answers. But you can at least have a Spanish translator there. We really need to get the Hispanic culture or the non-citizens, when they come to court, that needs to be their last day in court. Because if they get involved in a program, that very often just is a time and place for feds to pick them up. So you want them up there and you want them out. The diversion courts, such as the prostitution court, prostitution is usually a result of poverty. Mental health court, those are also people who need court-appointed attorneys. We have drug diversion courts. So, as I mentioned before, most of the diversion courts are caused by addiction and poverty, and so the diversion courts specifically help the economically deprived.
Can I respond to something she said since I didn't use up all my time?
We got to move on to the next question. Sorry. You can address your closing
I'll
statements.
do the first one.
Okay. My second question is, there's no incumbent in this race. So you're running to fill the vacancy by Jeffrey Rosen. Okay. What programs or policies would you like to implement that maybe he didn't? And what things would you like to keep in place in this particular? We'll start with you.
Start with me? Well, definitely the translator edition, the real emphasis on translation. That's not just this court. Judge Rosenfield was a good court, so we're not really inheriting anything that has some major problems. He was a good, fair judge with a good demeanor. I have, the staff does come to me and says that in that particular court, we're going to have a really backed up docket. They have very good clerks, but the court coordinator is not good. And I think in our own practices, we've realized that we've got some cases sitting in there with a violation of the right to a speedy trial. And that's going to be something that we face right away, is a kind of a rocket docket to make sure that those things are taken care of. He has a road and bridge program, which I would like to continue, but it needs to be updated. Some of those forms in there are over 10 years old. And when your clients... Road and Bridge is a program where somebody might have pled to jail, but in order to keep them out of the jail, either they just are petrified to go to jail, or the jail is, crowded and not a good place to be. You can offer them community county work. They call it Road and Bridge. It's mostly things like construction and painting, and they can do that for a certain number of hours. It will fulfill jail time. This is the only court that still does that. But a lot of times people want to keep their job in addition to doing this. And when they fill out and apply for the program will say that they can do it 7 days a week. So they plan to do it in the evenings and on the weekends. When they get there and find out those aren't the hours, they've changed the hours. And the court, doesn't know about it. I've told the court, but they're still using forms that are 10 years old. And so people commit to doing these things. And then if they don't get it done, they have to go to jail. So improving on the road and bridge program, make that better. I'd like to look into some more house arrest. One other court does that because anything that keeps people out of jail is a good thing. Emphasis on translators and a real emphasis on not requiring the defendant to be there for every court setting because they are trying to keep their jobs. And I'm very sensitive to all the needs. I've been a prosecutor and a defense attorney. I've even been a victim. I'll touch on that later. But I try to be sensitive to everybody in the court. This was a pretty good paced court. So I want everybody, I don't want people to be punished because they're in the criminal justice system. Punishment needs to be the eventual result, if necessary, as a consequence to the crime. So the victim shouldn't be punished because cases are being dragged out. And the defendant shouldn't lose his job because he's being required to show up for things that keep getting reset. So I understand how a judge's rulings had this ripple effect throughout law enforcement and victims and defendants. And so I would like to improve on making sure there's an awareness of the time frame that's happening with cases.
Thank you.
So the first thing I'd want to do is institute a pretrial system. Right now, they don't have a pretrial docket for cases that are set for trial. So when attorneys show up on a Monday morning when they're set for trial, you've got 7 to 10 cases set for trial and you have no idea if you're going to go. That creates uncertainty for defendants, victims, defense attorneys, and prosecutors. If you have a pretrial setting the week before or 2 weeks before, and this is something I've seen quite a bit in Collin and Denton counties where they do this, and a few courts in Dallas have started. You can take care of any pretrial issues, such as motions in limine, motions to suppress, as well as figure out who's actually going to go to trial. You can have final offers set there so that you're not going to show up Monday morning and 6 of the 7 cases plead out. You can get that taken care of ahead of time so you're not loading up a trial docket. I think that'll help make the court more efficient. I've seen it work in plenty of counties, and I would love to see it work in Dallas County. The other thing I'd want to keep is the road and bridge program. I won't touch on that. That was pretty much covered. But Judge Rosenfeld also currently has the SMU clinic run through his court, and that's something I would also like to keep in place because I want to be part of shaping the minds and the trial skills of young attorneys. As someone who was thrown into the fire in law school and getting to try cases, I want to make sure that other attorneys going through that process get the same chance. And so that's something I would like to keep. I don't know if I'll have that option or not as a brand new judge, but I would like to have that program continue to go through. And the other thing I want to do is come up with creative ways on top of just house arrest for punishment. A lot of counties do work release, where if someone's got a job, they can just go to work each day and spend the night in jail. I don't know how efficient we can do that with the Dallas County jails. That's something I would want to work with the sheriff on. But I think work release, where people aren't facing losing their jobs, could be beneficial to someone who can serve a jail sentence while at the same time keeping their job. So those are the things I'd want to keep and change right now.
Okay, my final question is, in the world of criminal justice, who are your heroes and why? We'll start with John.
Oh, wow. Can I say Saul Goodman? Better Call Saul? No? I guess the unsung hero is the defense attorney. And so for every attorney out there who's fighting for clients, who are being, basically, a defense attorney is the last stand with the government going after someone. And so it's a hard job. So they're the unsung heroes of the world, is the defense attorney. They're fighting to protect people's constitutional rights, make sure law enforcement isn't overreaching, courts aren't overreaching, district attorneys aren't overcharging. I take court-appointed cases just like a lot of other defense attorneys, and we don't do it for the money. We're doing it to serve the community. If you're a defense attorney, you probably don't have a whole lot of money because a lot of what you do, you're taking low bono, pro bono, and you're just fighting for the little guy. And so I guess I would just do a generalized, every defense attorney out there who's ever taken a court appointment or taken a case pro bono, they're my heroes in the criminal justice system.
Yeah, mine's going to be similar. Yay, defense attorneys, right? So, but yeah, I think the quote that I have always kept, my favorite quote is by Racehorse Haynes, which is, "I know it's a losing case, but we're going to give them hell." Because that is what keeps the system sharp. When I left the DA's office, Terry Moore was the first assistant there, and she said, "I'm going to tell you right now, when you leave, people are going to say, how can you defend someone you know is guilty?" And she said, and I repeat now, that's easy. That's so easy to defend somebody who's guilty. What's hard is to defend somebody that you know is innocent. That's where the pressure is on. That's where you can't sleep at night. But whether they're guilty or not, and especially when they're guilty, you know, if you're a defense attorney, you get in there and you fight no matter what. You fight for their constitutional rights. You fight, how long has it been? Is that constitutional? And I think all that fighting is what keeps law enforcement on its toes. And what I tell my clients when they come in, I said, I have no problem making the government do their job. That's what a trial is. We're here just to make them do their job. And I feel like when I have an officer on the stand, my job, especially when I go back to levying misdemeanor court, if he can't get his act together in misdemeanor court and do this right and do the process and get the arrest right on a possession of marijuana case or a DWI, well, guess what? That might be your loved one that got murdered, and that officer didn't know how to do a job right. He needs to learn that in my court in misdemeanor. He will have known that by the time he gets off the stand after a cross-examination from me. I feel it's our job. It's part of the checks and balances. It's part of keeping everybody sharp. Yeah, so I would say racehorse hangs and criminal defense attorneys in general.
Okay, now with that, you'll have 2 minutes to wrap things up. Johnny, you're welcome to go first.
Sure, and just to address something that was stated earlier about Spanish-speaking clients and court-appointed attorneys, I take court appointments in Dallas. I don't speak Spanish. When that comes up, they do not get sent right back to jail. I speak to the coordinator, and there's almost always a translator in the courthouse to where they can bring them over to talk to them, or there's another defense attorney that can be appointed who is a Spanish speaker. So I've seen that happen multiple times, so they don't just get sent back without representation. Most of the courts do make sure that does get taken care of. Now finally, I think I'm the best candidate for this position. Not only do I have the trial room experience, I've overseen cases, I've handled cases, but I can also handle the administrative side because I do that every day while I manage a criminal docket now, and then I manage an office. My employees love me, my partner loves me, he hates that I'm leaving, and so I think people will like me on the stand as the judge. I think they'll feel comfortable with me in there. I work hard, and I want to keep working hard for the citizens of Dallas County. I decided to run back in August when I knew I had an opportunity to serve. It's something that I've always wanted to do. When I graduated college, I enlisted in the Army. However, I couldn't serve due to my weight, and I have a little bit of a hearing loss in my right ear. So I decided I would go to law school and find a way to help out and serve my community. And I'm doing that today as I take court appointments, as I've represented family cases pro bono. And I want to do that as a judge of Dallas County because I want to make sure the courtrooms treat everyone fairly and are protected under the Constitution. So I'm asking everyone to vote for me in the primary. My name is Johnny Lanzillo. It's the name that sounds and kind of looks like Godzilla, but with an O at the end. It'll be the first name on the ballot of like the very, very last judicial race on your ballot. So thank you.
Yes. When I started campaigning, I was so proud of my experience, and I know I have more first chair jury trial experience than all the other candidates put together. Just having been on both sides, and I really pounded that. I interned for the U.S. Attorney's Office and all those things. But in talking with one of my lovely souls, Karen Newton, one day I said, what's important to you in a judge? And she pointed out to me that something that I've noticed over and over, not everybody wants most of all experience in a judge, they want compassion. And so I started thinking about that, and I believe that's really true. So I started sharing the fact that the reason I'm in the criminal justice system is because my daughter was killed 13 years ago. And it changed my direction from corporate and banking into the criminal justice system. I've never looked back. I immediately became a spokesperson, and I spoke to the subcommittees of the legislature for voting regulation, safety, and that just went on to the Office of the Federal Public Defender, and then I began working full-time for the DA's office. So when I say I've been everything in that courtroom, from prosecutor to defense attorney to victim, I mean it. Compassion, I've had that conversation over and over now because it's meant so much to me. I shared it with my kids, my grown kids. And my son actually this morning sent me a quote from Martin Luther King because I've been talking to him about compassion in a judge. And Martin Luther King said, "Justice would not be true justice if allowed to escape the bounds of love." And so I'm up there and I feel like I am to either try to see the love in other people, and if they have no love in them, then I can just be an example of what love is. I don't want to be too hippie on you, but I'm going to bring love into the courtroom. I hope you vote for me. I also have the experience. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for running. It's been my pleasure to moderate this, and good luck in your campaign.
Thank
you
so much.